Silly. I've given you the perfect blueprints for a good narrative. You've seen the narrative arc, did you not see the arc? So why haven't you written a masterpiece?
The teacher's right. Sort of. Every great story you've ever read or watched follows the same structure and has the same stages. But even though you've heard them a million times, if you don't know how to take advantage of them, they won't help your writing. Here's our breakdown on narrative structure and how you can use it to improve your stories. So, what are the stages of a narrative, and do you actually need them all? Here are the classics: orientation, complication, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. It's not that you need them, but that they're an innate part of a good story. So even though you've heard them before, let's give them a quick rundown. Orientation. The orientation introduces us to the world of your story. It sets the scene, lays out the characters, their habits, their lives, their capabilities. Complication. The complication is the emergence of a problem and the disruption of stability and order in the world of your character. Complications don't have to be epic disasters, they just have to pose a predicament for the character. Rising action. The rising action is what follows. Here, your character has to begin grappling with problems, trying to solve them. Climax. The climax is the apex of stress for the protagonist. The events should all build up to this one essential moment where the character is nakedly faced by their problems. Here, their decisions will either result in triumph or ruin. Falling action. The falling action is simply the aftermath of the climax and its immediate consequences. Lastly, you've got the resolution. For better or worse, this is the closure of complication and the completion of the story. Now, how does this relate to you? Well, we need to talk about the structure of a micro narrative. The first thing you need to know is that most of the stories you write are actually not even what we call short stories. Short stories are between 1,500 and 7,500 words long. The stories you will write for school are usually what's referred to as micro stories or flash fiction. These stories are actually harder to write than regular shorts because they're truncated. They require so much compression to fit in less than 1,000 words. And here's why that's relevant. Our recommendation is that you always start your story during the complication or rising action stage of a narrative. Your character should already be in the thick of it from the opening paragraph. As for the ending, well, invert it. You don't really have time to resolve your story, so we recommend you wrap up immediately after the climax stage. Think cliffhanger. You don't need to spell everything out. You can give the audience an implied ending that they can work out for themselves. When to consider narrative stages? The best time to consider these narrative stages is after you've written your draft, in the editing process. When students try to write a story from scratch and force it into these conventions, it usually feels really contrived. My tip: try to make a story that's true to life first, that feels raw and real. Then, in the editing process, cross-reference your story with these stages. See how it fits into the mold. And if it's appropriate, make adjustments, chop and change, cut and carry sections as you need. Stage transitions. When you're moving in between narrative stages, let's just say you're transitioning from the orientation to the complication, one of the best strategies that I like to steal from Trey Parker and Matt Stone is the but therefore rule. Whenever you want to transition into a new scene or stage, you should always pose it as an obstacle and then a consequence. Jimmy really wanted to go to the acai store, but his mother had already brought no frills acai at home. Therefore, Jimmy decided to feed the acai to the dog, but his mother caught it and confronted him, and therefore,
Jimmy?
you get the idea. Simply repeat the process until you arrive at a satisfying ending. To see a proper example of this process in action, check out our resource in the link below. Hopefully, you have a clearer understanding of narrative structure and stages and how you can take advantage of them to shape and craft your next story a little bit better.
Yeah, disgusting. Maybe if you put this level of passion into your climax, your story wouldn't have sucked so much.